The hidden trap of desire. What if everything you've been chasing your whole life is actually the reason you feel unhappy? Take a moment and really think about that. From a young age, we're taught a simple formula for happiness. Want more, achieve more, become more. Get better grades, land a better job, make more money, find the perfect relationship, build the ideal life. And once you reach those milestones, you'll finally feel fulfilled, right? But something strange happens. You get the job, and you want a better one. You make money, and it still doesn't feel like enough. You fall in love, and suddenly there's fear of losing it. It's like standing at the horizon, walking endlessly towards something that keeps moving further away. If you've ever felt that quiet emptiness, even after achieving something you once dreamed of, you're not alone. In fact, this experience is deeply human. And more importantly, it's something that ancient Buddhist wisdom has been exploring for over 2,500 years. Today, we're going to uncover a powerful truth about desire, what it really is, why it never seems to end, and how it quietly shapes your entire emotional life. And if you're someone searching for real clarity, inner peace, and a deeper understanding of yourself, make sure to subscribe to Buddha Flash, because this is just the beginning. What is desire, really? At its core, desire seems simple. It's the feeling of wanting something you don't currently have. It could be something big, like success, recognition, or love, or something small, like checking your phone for notifications, craving your favorite food, or hoping someone texts you back. Desire is everywhere. It's woven into nearly every decision you make. You wake up in the morning and desire comfort, so you stay in bed a little longer. You go to work because you desire stability or success. You scroll through social media because you desire connection, validation, or entertainment. In modern life, especially in Western culture, desire isn't just normal, it's encouraged. We're constantly surrounded by messages telling us that we're missing something, that we need something more to be complete. Advertisements, social media, and even self-help culture often reinforce the same idea. You are not enough yet. And so we keep chasing the next achievement, the next purchase, the next version of ourselves. But here's the question most people never stop to ask. What happens when you finally get what you want? Why desire never feels satisfied? Think back to something you really wanted in the past. Maybe it was getting into a certain school, landing a specific job, buying something you couldn't stop thinking about, or even being with someone you believed would make you happy. At the time, it felt incredibly important. You told yourself, once I have this, things will be different. And maybe for a short while they were. You felt excited, proud, happy. But then that feeling faded. It didn't last as long as you expected, and before long, your mind moved on to the next thing. This is what psychologists often call the hedonic treadmill, the tendency for humans to quickly return to a baseline level of happiness no matter what they achieve or acquire. In other words, no matter how far you go, you end up right back where you started, wanting more. It's not because you're ungrateful. It's not because you're doing life wrong. It's because the mind itself is designed to keep generating desire. Desire doesn't end when it's fulfilled. It simply changes shape. You don't just want success, you want more success. You don't just want love, you want reassurance, security, permanence. You don't just want happiness, you want it to last forever. And that's where the problem begins, because life doesn't work that way. The first insight: desire and suffering. One of the most profound teachings in Buddhism is surprisingly simple. Desire is the root of suffering. At first, that might sound extreme. After all, how can something so natural, so human, be the cause of our pain? But when you look closely, it starts to make sense. Desire isn't just about wanting something, it's about becoming emotionally tied to it. When you strongly desire something, you're not just saying, "This would be nice to have." You're often saying, unconsciously, "I need this to feel complete." And the moment that happens, your peace becomes dependent on something outside of you. If you don't get what you want, you feel disappointed, frustrated, or even broken. If you do get it, you feel happy, but only temporarily, followed by fear of losing it. So either way, there's tension. Imagine this in everyday life. You want someone to like you. Now you're constantly thinking about how they see you. You overanalyze your words. You feel anxious, waiting for their response. That's not just desire, that's suffering. Or consider success. You work hard to achieve a goal, and that's not a bad thing. But if your sense of self-worth becomes tied to that outcome, then failure doesn't just feel like a setback, it feels like a personal collapse. Again, suffering. Even positive experiences carry this hidden weight. You fall in love, and along with joy comes fear. Fear of losing the person, fear of things changing, fear of not being enough. And suddenly, what once brought happiness also brings anxiety. This is what Buddhist wisdom points to, not that desire itself is evil, but that our attachment to it creates a cycle we rarely see. A cycle of wanting, gaining, fearing, losing, and wanting again. A subtle but powerful question. So here's something worth reflecting on. Have you ever achieved something you deeply wanted and still felt like something was missing? Not dramatically, not in a way that others could see, but quietly, internally, like a small voice saying, "Is this it?" That question is incredibly important because it's often the first crack in the illusion that desire alone can fulfill you. And once you start to see that, everything begins to change. Where do we go from here? At this point, you might be wondering, if desire leads to suffering, does that mean we should stop wanting things altogether? Should we give up ambition, stop pursuing goals, detach from everything? The answer is not as simple as it seems, because not all desire is the same. And in the next part, we're going to explore a deeper layer of Buddhist wisdom, one that reveals the difference between the kinds of desire that trap you and the kinds that can actually set you free.
The deeper truth about desire. So if desire can lead to suffering, does that mean we should stop wanting anything at all? Should we give up our goals, our ambitions, our dreams? Should we detach from everything and just exist without caring? At first glance, that might seem like the logical conclusion, but this is where many people misunderstand Buddhist wisdom, because the truth is far more nuanced and far more practical for real life. Buddhism doesn't teach you to eliminate all desire. Instead, it teaches you to understand it, to differentiate it, and ultimately to relate to it in a healthier way. And that begins with a powerful distinction. Two types of desire: the one that traps you versus the one that frees you. Not all desire is harmful. In fact, some forms of desire are necessary for growth, learning, and even happiness. In Buddhist philosophy, there's a distinction between two types of desire. The first is often referred to as craving, a restless, compulsive form of wanting. This is the kind of desire that says, "I need this to be happy. I can't feel okay without this. My life will only be complete when I get that." This kind of desire is driven by lack. It comes from a feeling that something is missing inside you and that something external will fix it. This is the desire that keeps you stuck in cycles, chasing validation, chasing status, chasing perfection. No matter how much you get, it never truly satisfies you because the feeling of not enough is still there underneath. But there's another kind of desire, a quieter, more grounded form. This is the desire to grow, to learn, to improve, to contribute, to live with purpose. This type of desire doesn't come from emptiness, it comes from clarity. You don't pursue something because you need it to feel worthy. You pursue it because it aligns with who you are becoming. For example, you can work hard at your job because you're desperate for approval, or you can work hard because you genuinely care about what you're building. You can exercise because you hate your body, or because you respect it. You can help others to feel needed, or because you value kindness. On the outside, these actions may look identical, but internally, they are completely different experiences. One creates pressure and anxiety. The other creates meaning and peace. The real problem is attachment, not desire. This leads to one of the most important insights in Buddhist teaching. It's not desire itself that causes suffering, it's attachment. Attachment is what happens when desire becomes rigid, when it turns into a demand. When your mind says, things must be this way or I won't be okay. That's the moment desire starts to control you, because now your emotional state is tied to an outcome you can't fully control. Think about how often this shows up in daily life. You want a plan to go perfectly, but something unexpected happens, and suddenly you feel frustrated. You want someone to treat you a certain way, but they don't, and now you feel hurt or rejected. You want life to be predictable, stable, secure. But life, by nature, is constantly changing. And when reality doesn't match your expectations, you suffer. Not because something terrible happened, but because your mind was attached to a specific version of how things should be. The illusion of control. Underneath attachment, there's another layer, the desire for control. As humans, we naturally want to feel in control of our lives. We want to control outcomes. We want to control how others perceive us. We want to control the future. But there's a fundamental truth that Buddhist wisdom emphasizes again and again. Everything is impermanent. Circumstances change. People change. Emotions come and go. Even the things you hold most tightly will eventually shift in some way. And yet, the mind resists this reality. It tries to hold on. It tries to fix things in place. It tries to turn temporary experiences into permanent ones. This is especially true in relationships. You meet someone, you connect, you feel joy. And then, without realizing it, the mind starts to build expectations. This should last. This shouldn't change. This person should always be this way. But when change inevitably happens, as it always does, it feels like something is wrong, like something is breaking. When in reality, it's simply life unfolding as it always has. The suffering doesn't come from change itself, it comes from resisting it. Why letting go feels so difficult? So if attachment creates suffering, the obvious solution would be to let go. So why is that so hard? Because letting go doesn't just feel like losing something external. It often feels like losing a part of yourself. Many of our desires are deeply tied to our identity. The career you pursue, the lifestyle you want, the image you present to others. These aren't just goals, they become part of how you define who you are. So when you're asked to loosen your grip, it can feel unsettling, like you're stepping into the unknown. There's also a deeper fear beneath all of this, the fear of emptiness. If you stop chasing, striving, and constantly wanting, what's left? Will life feel meaningless? Will you lose your motivation? Will you become passive or disconnected? These fears are natural, but they come from a misunderstanding. Letting go doesn't mean you stop living. It doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop clinging. A shift in perspective. Buddhist wisdom doesn't ask you to reject the world. It asks you to see it clearly, to recognize that desire, when unconscious, can quietly control your thoughts, emotions, and actions. But when you become aware of it, When you can observe it without immediately reacting, you begin to create space. Space between you and your impulses. Space between you and your fears. And in that space, something powerful happens. You gain freedom. Freedom to choose your response. Freedom to pursue what matters without being consumed by it. Freedom to experience life more fully without constantly needing it to be different. This shift doesn't happen overnight. It's something you begin to notice gradually, in small moments, like when you feel the urge to check your phone, but pause instead. Or when you notice yourself wanting approval and choose to stay grounded in your own sense of worth. These moments may seem insignificant, but they are the beginning of a completely different way of living. Moving forward. So now the question becomes, if we don't eliminate desire, but instead learn to observe it and loosen our attachment, how do we actually practice that in daily life? How do we live in a world full of ambition, relationships, and constant stimulation without getting trapped in the cycle of wanting and suffering? In the final part, we're going to explore exactly that. Practical ways to relate to desire differently. How to let go without losing your drive, and how to find a deeper sense of peace that doesn't depend on getting everything you want.
Freedom from desire. So now we arrive at the most important question. How do you actually live in a world full of desire without suffering from it? Because let's be real, you can't escape desire. You live in a world that constantly stimulates it. Your mind naturally generates it. And your goals, relationships, and daily life all involve some form of wanting. So the answer isn't to run away from desire. The answer is to change your relationship with it. And that begins with something simple, but incredibly powerful. Awareness changes everything. Before you can let go of desire, you first have to see it clearly. Not suppress it, not judge it, not fight it. Just notice it. This is where awareness comes in. Most of the time, desire operates in the background of your mind, quietly influencing your decisions without you even realizing it. You don't just check your phone, you feel the urge and instantly act on it. You don't just feel the need for approval, you adjust your behavior automatically. You don't just want something, you become consumed by it. There's no space between the feeling and the reaction, but awareness creates that space. Imagine this. Instead of immediately reacting to a desire, you pause and think, I notice that I want this. That small shift changes everything, because now you're no longer inside the desire, you're observing it. And when you can observe something, you're no longer controlled by it. You begin to see that desire is not who you are. It's just a passing experience, like a wave rising and eventually falling. The practice of letting go. Once you can see desire clearly, the next step is learning how to let go. Now, letting go is often misunderstood. It doesn't mean you stop caring. It doesn't mean you give up your goals. It doesn't mean you become passive or indifferent. Letting go means something much more subtle. You do your best without attaching your peace to the outcome. You still take action. You still pursue what matters to you, but internally you remain flexible. For example, you can work hard toward a goal, but if things don't go exactly as planned, you don't collapse emotionally. You can love someone deeply, but you don't try to control them or hold on to them out of fear. You can enjoy success, but you don't base your entire identity on it. This is what true balance looks like. Engaged, but not entangled. Committed, but not dependent. And ironically, when you let go of attachment, you often perform better, because you're no longer weighed down by anxiety, fear, and pressure. You become more present, more focused, more at ease. Finding joy without attachment. One of the biggest illusions we carry is this: I'll be happy when I get the job, when I find the relationship, when I achieve the goal. But as you've already seen, that kind of happiness is unstable. It comes and goes. It depends on conditions. And because conditions are always changing, it never lasts. Buddhist wisdom offers a different perspective. What if happiness isn't something you chase, but something you access? Not in the future, not after you achieve something, but right here, within your present experience. This doesn't mean life becomes perfect. It means you stop postponing your peace. You begin to appreciate simple moments, a quiet morning, a deep breath, a genuine conversation. You find contentment not because everything is exactly how you want it, but because you're no longer resisting what is. This kind of joy is quieter, but it's also more stable because it doesn't depend on constantly getting what you want. Simple daily practices. So how do you bring this into your everyday life? It doesn't require drastic changes. It starts with small, consistent practices. 1. Pause and notice. Throughout your day, take moments to check in with yourself. What am I wanting right now? What am I expecting? Just noticing is enough. 2. Create space before reacting. The next time you feel a strong urge, pause for a few seconds. You don't have to act on every desire. This builds awareness and self-control over time. 3. Question your attachments. When something feels emotionally intense, ask yourself, am I attached to a specific outcome? This question alone can shift your perspective. 4. Practice gratitude. Instead of focusing on what's missing, bring attention to what's already here. This weakens the constant need for more. 5. Accept impermanence. Remind yourself, everything changes, not as a negative thought, but as a grounding truth. It helps you appreciate things while they're here, without clinging to them. A new way to live. When you begin to understand desire in this way, something remarkable happens. Life starts to feel lighter. You're no longer constantly chasing the next thing. You're no longer trapped in cycles of expectation and disappointment. You still have goals, you still care, you still engage fully with life, but there's a new quality to your experience. Freedom. Freedom from needing everything to go your way. Freedom from defining yourself by what you have or don't have. Freedom from the endless pressure to become something more before you can feel okay. And in that freedom, you discover something deeper than temporary happiness. You discover peace. Not the kind that comes and goes, but the kind that stays with you, no matter what's happening around you. Final thoughts. Desire isn't your enemy. It's a teacher. It shows you where you're attached, where you're seeking fulfillment outside yourself, where you're unconsciously giving away your peace. And once you begin to see it clearly, you no longer have to be controlled by it. You can live with intention, with awareness, with balance. If this message helped you see your life from a new perspective, make sure to subscribe to Buddha Flash for more insights on inner peace, mindfulness, and Buddhist wisdom. And here's something I'd love to hear from you. What is one desire in your life that you feel ready to let go of? Take a moment, reflect, and share it in the comments below.